Good morning, good evening, and hello everyone. I welcome you all to Number Properties webinar in which we are going to talk about how is it that you can ace questions pertaining to number properties, and also how is it that you can apply whatever we learned today in the context of number properties to a much broader context in terms of GMAT. My name is Payal Tandon. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm really very excited to be your host today. Now, just wanted to make sure that everyone is at a common playing field. We actually share some video lessons with you, prime numbers 1, prime numbers 2, just to make sure that you have a basic understanding of what numbers are all about. So I hope that you had a chance to go through these concepts, and if you haven't as yet gone through these concepts, feel free to access these as part of your, because these are part of your e-GMAT free trial, so definitely do go through them. And just with a show of yes, I want to see how many of you have actually gone through these files, just to get a brief idea. And if you haven't gone through these files, you can definitely click on no. It's absolutely fine. So about slightly less than half of the class here has gone through these files. Okay, all right, sounds good. In addition to that, we also have this number properties knockout in which there are 700 level questions. So these are really challenging questions, and just if you are prepared for number properties, it's a very good way to check where you're at with it. And if you are in the process of preparing, then also definitely take a look at it and kind of have fun with these questions. So the link is here. You can click on it right now and then bookmark it for later use. Now, every weekend we conduct these webinars in which we teach you the right methodology to approach GMAT. Yesterday I conducted a webinar on sentence correction. How many of you attended that webinar yesterday, in which I talked about this approach towards sentence correction? So we have quite a few new folks. Actually, majority of you didn't attend my sentence correction webinar. So if you are facing problems with verbal in general or specifically in sentence correction, we did share the recording of this webinar, so definitely take a look at it. I'll be happy to share the link of the recording in this webinar as well, so that you have it handy with you. Next weekend, we'll be conducting a webinar on reading comprehension, in which we'll talk about the strategies that you can utilize to master reading comprehension. And reading comprehension by far is the easiest section to master. So if you are stuck, if you've hit a plateau, then definitely attend that webinar. Following Sunday, we're conducting a quant workshop in which we are going to give you, think about this as a proctored mock test, which gives you personalized insights such that you get a very clear idea about how is it that you should, where is it that you need to focus your energy on in quant. So definitely attend both these webinars. Okay. Now, in order to get to understand the class profile a bit better, we ask you this question: when is it that you plan to take the test? So if you haven't as yet responded to the poll, please do so right now. And given the responses right now, it's very obvious that right now people are almost in the starting levels of their preparation. They don't have a hurry to take the test, which wasn't the case back in December and November when we conducted these sessions. There, people were taking the test. The majority of the class was taking the test within the next 15 days, within the next 30 days. So right now, it seems a bit more comfortable. Are you guys feeling a little bit more comfortable that, okay, there isn't any deadline to meet, or any deadline from the perspective of GMAT? You feel as if you have more time at your hand to prepare for the test. Oh, you're not feeling comfortable. Okay, let's hear a little bit what's making you anxious. While we are on that topic, let's understand what's making you anxious or what's making you nervous right now. Because majority of the class has not taken the GMAT, has the test from in more than 45 days from now. So tell me, what is it that you are facing issues with? Or time management? Haven't taken any mocks as yet. Okay. Vast portion percentiles. Okay. I gave a GMAT OG mock and got a 600 only. Okay, need more of your strategies. Okay, so apparently from what it looks like, an answer yes or no, from what it looks like, you're anxious right now, because you don't know how to get started with your prep, or you've started your prep and you're not sure whether you're headed in the right direction. So is that where you're at right now in terms of your classifying why you're anxious? Okay, all right. Well, I hope to put a lot of that anxiety to rest through this webinar, and definitely, if this webinar is helpful for you, then definitely attend the webinars in the next week, as well as view the recording of the SC webinar. All right. So what I'm going to do is um, I'm going to change the presentation pane, and I do see your responses here in terms of time management. A number of you are concerned about time. I'll address that time bit in this session, but in the beginning of this session, I'm not going to be worried about the session about the timing aspect of the test, but I'm definitely going to address that, so don't worry about it. All right, so I'm going to change the presentation pane now, change the layout, and you're going to see on your screen a presentation pop up. So when you start to see purpose of the session, on the right hand side of this, on the left hand side of the screen, click on yes, because that's the indication that the layout has stabilized at your end. Okay, Merin is asking, could you tell me from where I can access the recording of this webinar? We will email you the recording in about 6 to 8 hours from the time that we end the session. Okay, so you'll get the recording in your email. Okay. All right, so what is the purpose of this session? The purpose of this session is to help you understand how is it that you can ace GMAT Quant. You need to have solid understanding of basics. We're going to go over that in this session. You need to have a structured approach to solving questions, and we are going to emphasize on that in this session. That is going to be the primary focus of this session. Okay. Now, how we are going to conduct this one is I'm going to give you data sufficiency questions 700 levels. I'm going to start off with difficult questions, because ultimately GMAT is an adaptive test, right? Your goal is to answer as many difficult questions as you can in order to get to that high GMAT score. Okay. Now, for you to be able to answer difficult questions consistently, you need to be able to answer easy and medium questions accurately all the time. Okay, because only when you answer those easier questions correctly, you actually get a chance to prove your prowess in difficult questions. So essentially, and in order to solve those difficult questions correctly, you need to have a structured process. For easy questions, you can simply rely on your whatever methods you utilize. But for you to be able to consistently solve difficult questions correctly, you need to utilize a step-by-step process, and that is what we're going to talk about in this session. So I want to start this session off with data sufficiency questions, 700 level, to help you visualize and understand the kind of questions you will need to have prowess to answer. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to start from grounds up. We're going to build up, we're going to give you warm-up questions on the topics that we are talking about in this session. We're going to give you some easier problem-solving questions, and then we're going to increase the difficulty level of those problem-solving questions. And then we'll take these data sufficiency questions again towards the end of this, and we're going to solve and we're going to discuss those in detail. What you're going to find is that as you solve these questions, as you build from grounds up, you're going to see how your understanding of the basic concepts and how the structured approach that you used, even on the easier and the medium difficulty level questions, how both of those really help you get prepared to answer the difficult questions. Okay, so that is what you're going to see, and this is the entire mantra behind the quant course as well, that we teach you the very basics, and then we slowly increase the difficulty level of questions. We teach you the application through the application files, and then we have you practice those through the practice file, and all of this happens in the e-GMAT quant course, and then you cement your skill set utilizing Scholaranium. So what I'm showing you in this session is essentially the progression that you see in the e-GMAT quant course as well. So if you like what you see here, you are going to really benefit a lot from the quant course in general. Okay. All right, so let's get started with the 700 level data sufficiency questions. Now, are all of you familiar with the data sufficiency format of questions? I'm assuming that most of you answered this question as yes. All right, good, sounds good. So a couple of you who are not, I will essentially, okay, so I'll just give you a brief idea. You have a question statement, and then you have a question statement that gives you some information, okay, and then you need to, it also gives you the question, what is it that you need to find? You have two statements, you have to individually analyze both of these statements, and then if both the statements, if either of the statements doesn't give you the answer to the question, then you also do a combination. So again, this is just at a very high level. So for the 10 of you who don't know what data sufficiency question is, you'll have to follow along as I discuss the solutions in detail. So don't worry if you're not able to solve the questions up front. Okay. All right. So let's get going with this. Here's the first question, and let me tell you how I usually do these questions. One second here. Okay, and before we go further here, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Ashutosh Mishra. He's our resident GMAT quant expert. He will be answering your questions through the Q&A pod. Basically, just a bit of housekeeping here. Whatever questions I ask you, you need to put the responses to those questions either in the yes/no poll or in the answer presenter's question poll. Now, whatever questions you have from me or from Ashutosh, put those questions in the Q&A pod. Those questions are only visible to us as hosts. If any of your questions falls in the flow of the session as I'm conducting it, I will definitely address that. But if it doesn't fall in the flow, then Ashutosh is going to take those questions. Okay. All right, so let's get going with question number 8. Now, one thing that I do want you to do is I want you to click on still solving, because that tells me how many people are actively engaged with the question. I have about 120 participants right now, so not all 120 will be responding to the question. So I just want to get an idea about how many are going to be actively engaged. Once about 50% of the class selects an answer, I am going to give you a 30-second or a 1-minute warning depending upon the difficulty level of the question. So right off the bat, you can see that I'm not putting a timing constraint of, let's say, 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes on you. I'm letting the class decide how much time as a group you're going to take. Okay. All right. So 55 right now, 125 participants. Okay. I can go ahead. I know you can't see the question because I haven't shown the question yet. Okay. All right. So let's get going here. Question number 8. Go ahead. Last 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to show you the next question. Question number 9. Okay, please click on still solving, and then I'm going to show you question number 9 on the screen. All right. There you go. Okay, last 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll. And now comes question number 10. Give me 1 second. There you go. Click on still solving, please. Okay. Okay, last 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so how was the experience? Was it daunting? Okay, overwhelmingly, everyone is agreeing that yes, it was daunting experience. Um, to say the least, extremely tough, too much. Okay, now what I'm going to say, forget about these questions. Okay, keep them to the side. We're going to take these questions again towards the end. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you the same question um, about your experience. Okay. Now tell me one more thing. What were the concepts that these three questions tested you on at a very high level? And then we'll go on to the next slide. Remainders, never seen these before. Remainder theorem, divisibility. Okay, remainders. Now, not familiar with these question types, power, divisibility, right? So yeah, divisibility and remainders, that is what is the theme of this session. Again, what we've done is we've taken a very small, not very small, it's a substantial part of number properties, but instead of covering expansively the entire number properties into a 2-hour long session, we've taken this small topic, divisibility and remainders. That is a very significant topic in itself in number properties, and we are showing you, demonstrating you what is the right way to prepare for each of these important topics, okay, in quant. Okay, all right, so that's what the goal of this session is. Now, in terms of your understanding of remainders and divisibility, how would you rate your conceptual understanding? And I'm going to give you this poll. How confident are you of the concepts, just the concepts? I'm not talking about whether you can solve difficult questions correctly or not, but in terms of how confident are you? And actually, let me add one more option here. There should be confident 200%, and then I would say about 75% also. Okay, so now tell me something intermediate. Yes, that's what I guess, that you guys, not everyone is just 50% confident. Yeah, there is somewhere in the middle as well, between 100% and 50%. Okay. All right. So you majority, so basically most of you, the largest segment here is at least 50% confident in these concepts. But it was a daunting experience to answer, to apply those concepts, to answer these three questions for almost all of you. Okay, so we have to figure out why that is happening. Okay, and the key answer, if I were to answer that in one word, that is application. You know the concepts, okay, but it's the application that you're not very comfortable with, and that is why those questions were daunting. Okay, all right, so now let's forget about those questions. Let's build it up, go from grounds up. Now for some of you, this section may go a little slow because you are already aware of the concepts, but let's go through this. Okay, so in this warm-up section, we're going to give you basic questions on divisibility and remainders, and I'll be able to give you feedback on your current conceptual knowledge. Okay, and again, I'm not going to be discussing solutions in detail. We're just going to be presenting the solutions, and then we'll move forward to the next question. Okay, so here goes the first question. Here comes the first question. So let's click on still solving, and then let's solve the question as well. Uh-oh. Broadcast results on. Okay, last 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. The correct answer here is choice B. 72% of the class selected the correct answer. Essentially, what we know over here is that Z is a 3-digit number. Okay, so we know that Z is a 3-digit number whose digits are consecutive numbers. And we need to select the correct statement. The statement is with regards to divisibility by the number 3. Now, what is the divisibility rule for number 3? That the sum of the digits should be divisible by 3. Now, because it's the sum of the digits that we are concerned about, we should, and we have information about the digits of this number, which means that we should utilize this information such that we can use the sum of the digits part as well in order to solve the question, right? So that's what we do. We assume that the first digit is x, which means because the digits are consecutive numbers, the second digit will be x plus 1, the third digit will be x plus 2. Okay. So again, why are we deciding to go this route is based on the information that we know, the concept that we know, and the information that we have been given in the question statement. And this is a very important thing because you have to utilize the same methodology for the next question that's going to be asked. Okay, so why do we assume x plus 1, x plus 2? Why do we utilize this approach? Because of the information given in the question statement and the concept that we are aware of with regards to the divisibility of 3. So both those things, question plus the concept, leads you to this particular approach. Okay. All right, so we do this, and then what we realize is when we simplify, what we get is 3x plus 3, which is 3 into x plus 1. Now, whatever be the value of x, this number, the sum of these digits, is always going to be a multiple of 3. Why? Because you have this 3 outside, okay, which means that this number is always divisible by 3, and hence choice B is the correct answer. Now, for those of you who selected anything but choice B, I hope you're able to understand where you faltered. Okay. All right. Now, with this, let's come to the next question, and I'm going to remove the poll results here. Click on still solving, please. And again, keep in mind the approach, how we came about with the approach, what's given in the question statement, and plus the conceptual knowledge. Okay. And that's how we come up with the approach. Okay. Here you go. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So, interesting here. Choice A is the correct answer. Z may be divisible by 4. And I see that quite a few of you have selected choice C as well. So, let's understand how is it that you approach this question. So, tell me, what was the approach to this question? First of all, let me ask you, how many of you assumed the number as x into x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3, x plus 4? How many of you did that? Okay, and this is where my suggestion to you comes into picture. What is given over here? What is given is that Z is a 4-digit number whose digits are consecutive numbers, right? Now, when we say consecutive number, whose digits are consecutive numbers, which is similar information that you had been given in question number, in the previous warm-up question, right? Now, from the standpoint of divisibility rule of 4, okay, so this information is the same, okay, same here. But in terms of our conceptual understanding, this part is different from our previous question, right? Divisibility rule of 4 is what? That last two digits should be divisible by 4. In the previous case, the divisibility rule was such that it lended us to basically, it made perfect sense to assume numbers as x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3, because we had to figure out the sum, right? In this case, all we are concerned about is the last two digits. Okay, so that's why my approach, the logical approach that I would use over here is going to be in terms of simply being concerned about the last two digits. And in that case, I'm going to consider multiple cases. Right now, I'm concerned about the last two digits, which means based on the units digit, my number can be either even or odd, right? So Z could be odd. If Z is odd, then I know for sure. And is there a number possible such that the last two digits are consecutive numbers and the number is odd? Absolutely, that is definitely possible. 4, 5, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, right? All the four digits are consecutive numbers and 45 are the last two numbers, and 5 is odd, right? Which means that this number on the whole is odd, which means that this number satisfies the information in the question statement and it answers the question no, that this number is not divisible by 4. Okay. Now, other option could be that Z could be even, right? Those are the only two options, right? There's nothing else that is possible. Either a number is odd or a number is even, right? Now, when you look at even, there are two cases, right? One is when the last two digits are actually divisible by 4, right? Let's take up 3, 4, 5, 6. 56 is divisible by 4, which means this number is completely divisible by 4. Or you could have a scenario 1, 2, 3, 4. In that case, 34 is not divisible by 4. So you are taking up, what you're doing is you are taking up, you're looking at what the concept is, okay, and you're coming up with your approach accordingly. Now, because you're concerned about the last two digits, you know that, okay, Z as a whole could be odd or even. In the case of odd, you are coming up with an example just to convince yourself that there is a number Z whose digits are consecutive numbers and that number is odd. And you're coming up with 2, 3, 4, 5 just for confirmation, and you know that, okay, this is not divisible by 4. So automatically, you know that choice B is gone. Okay. Now you know that Z is even. I'm repeating myself here because coming up with the right approach is very, very important. Okay, and how do you come up with the right approach? How do you apply the concept? This is the concept that you know, but how is it that you apply that concept in the context of the GMAT question is the key. That is the skill set that you need to build, and that's the reason why I'm going about it in so much of detail. Okay, now Z could be even. Now there are again two cases there because you know not all even numbers are divisible by 4, right? That's common knowledge. That's your conceptual understanding, which means that there are two cases here again. One is when it is divisible by 4, the other it's not divisible by 4. But again, you are confirming that there is a number Z such that the last two digits are not divisible by 4. There is a number Z as given in the question statement such that the last two digits are divisible by 4. Okay, and that's how you are coming up with the answer that Z may be divisible by 4. Okay. So now I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to bring back the poll again because this is important. So a number of you, pretty big chunk, selected choice C, the Z is not divisible by 4. Where did you falter? Because this skill set is going to be very important in solving data sufficiency questions as well, considering all the possible cases. Okay. This as a skill set is very much, this is a process skill set that you need to have, okay, which is applicable in this problem solving question, very much applicable in data sufficiency questions as well. So tell me, for those of you who selected choice C, where did you falter? And again, one thing that I do want to bring to everyone's attention is that I'm not just taking up numbers out of thin air. I'm not just assuming certain cases. There is a certain logic behind how I'm coming up with these cases, and the logic to begin with is z is a general number, odd or even, nothing else is possible. If it's even, then either it's multiple of 4 or it's not multiple of 4. No other possible cases, right? And then I'm figuring out how is it that I fit it into the, whether z fits into the criteria or not, okay? Now, didn't know the rule, so that's a conceptual gap there. Got into too much thinking. That's an application issue. You're not able to come up with the approach. Added last two digits, which will always be odd. Okay, and again, that is, yes, absolutely. Consecutive numbers when added will always be odd. And again, that is a conceptual gap. You didn't know, you considered last two digits, but you didn't know what the exact concept is. So that's again a conceptual issue. Okay. Mistakenly applied divisibility test of 3. Now, when you say mistakenly applied, why is it that you did that? Okay, you have to ask that. If you know the divisibility rule of 4, if you know the divisibility rule of 3, why would you apply divisibility rule of 3? So again, are you just not completely into it right now? Or is it truly that you don't have that precise understanding of the concept? So you have to ask yourself that. Ignored maybe in the first option, okay? If you ignored maybe in the first option, then you didn't look at choice B, because choice B actually says always divisible, right? So that's the that's another that's the, I won't say it's the if it's not maybe, then it's always, right? Right. So again, you have to read the question statement and the answer choices very carefully. Okay. So missed case 3, 4, 5, 6 only. Now again, if that's the case, then again you have to this is the process skill that you have to build upon. So again, from what this exercise, what that tells me is either there is complete concept gap, or either you don't know the concept, okay, or there is a concept gap, which means that you're not precisely aware of the concept, which means you have to build upon your conceptual understanding. If you know the concept, then if you are not able to solve this question, then the process skill of considering all cases is actually missing. It's an when I say process skill, it's the same as application skill. This is the skill that you need to work upon. Okay. All right. And this is how you need to be evaluating each and every question that you solve. It's very, very important to do this deep dive of an analysis. How many of you do such analysis today? Okay. Well, slowly the number is coming down. Okay, we are going to be doing this level of analysis, and then we are going to see how is it that you can enable yourself to do such analysis. Can we have the solutions for the initial 3 questions, please? Yes, you will definitely get that, but towards the end of the session. Okay. All right. Let's now go to warm-up question number 3. We have 4 choices here. Now this is easier of the previous 2 questions. So let's go ahead, get everyone to click on still solving. All right, here you go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and solve this question now. Very straightforward question. Multiple of 8, divisibility rule, last 3 digits should be divisible by 8. And in this case, the approach is relatively straightforward. And again, 897, the remainder when you divide it by 8 is 1, which means that the closest number will end with 896. So choice C is the correct answer. So well and good. Now let's look at question number 4. Let's go through this again. Click on still solving, please. Now solve this question in whichever method you're going to use, and then I'm going to give you my solution, and then for the next question I'd want you to utilize that method. Okay. Okay, last few seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. All right, so the correct answer here is choice D, which 65% of the class has selected. Now I'm going to show you the method, and I know that not many of you would have solved the question using the method that I'm going to show you here, which is absolutely fine. But as I said, I'm going to request you for the next questions to utilize this method, okay? And I'll tell you the reason why, okay? So if a number n leaves a remainder 3 when divided by 204, what is the remainder when n is divided by 4? Now tell me, what is the method that you used? How is it that you approached this question? Took the number 207 and did the calculation. How many of you did that? How many of you took the number 207 and how did you come to 207? Because when divided by 3, the remainder is, when leaves the remainder 3 when divided by 204. So how many of you did it that way? Verify that 204 is a multiple of 4. Okay, all right. Okay, so here is what the method that I have used here. What is the remainder when n is divided by 4? So n is the number, is divided by 4, 4p plus r, right? Now r is always less than 4. That's something which is a constraint implemented by the system itself, instituted by the concept. Now I have to find out what is the remainder when this number is, if the number n leaves the remainder 3 when divided by 204. So 204 is the quotient here, and it leaves the remainder 3 when this number n is divided by it, right? Now taking these two equations, what I see is that I try to, my right hand side is this, so my left hand side is n in both the cases, okay? I have one term which is in this form here, the other term which is in the form 4p here, right? Basically a multiple of 4 here, and then this term is not a multiple of 4, is not 4x, right? Likewise, this term is not a multiple of 4 in this case, right? So that's what I do. What I basically, in order to figure out what R is, what I have to do is, if this part is already equal in both the equations, right? If I am able to express this term 204q, somehow if I can express this in terms of multiple of 4 plus a non-multiple of 4, not a multiple of 4, not 4x, then I can find my R. Okay, and that's what I've done over here, and that's what some of you have also done, that 204 you're checking, is 204 a multiple of 4 or not, and in this case absolutely yes, 204 is a multiple of 4. Okay, so essentially if 204 is a multiple of 4, then the remaining entity here, remaining number here, 3, that is your remainder. Okay, so essentially how many of you got what I just said at a very high level? Okay, some of you didn't get it. Okay, tell me, what did you not get so that I can explain this to you, because this is the basic premise, that basic application that you have to learn. So what is it that you did not get? And again, you've been able to solve the question correctly. This question is easy, you were able to solve it utilizing your method, but you need to understand what is exactly that you're doing in order to be able to solve questions that are based on higher level of application of this particular concept. Okay, can you explain the last part written? Essentially, even if you don't go by the last part, because this is mathematics over here, right? Just understand the concept behind what is happening here. We are comparing the two equations. This is a given equation. You know that this equation is true. Okay, this equation over here. This R is what you have to figure out. You don't know what R is. So you observe these two equations. This is a given equation, right? So you observe these two equations. Now what you know for sure is that this is n, this is n. So these two are the same numbers, right? Then you see what is composed over here. This number n is composed of two things. One is a multiple of 4, 4p, plus r is definitely not a multiple of 4, right? It's a remainder, right? So if you can express what is over here in this equation in terms of two numbers, one that is a multiple of 4, the other that's not a multiple of 4, okay, then you can figure out by similarity, you can say that the number that is not a multiple of 4 is my remainder. That is a basic premise over here. Okay, that is the basic approach that we are applying. Okay, in this case, the numbers are such. You take a look at 204, you know that it's a multiple of 4, right? Which means that this equation is so simple, is so similar to this equation over here that there is hardly any processing to be done, right? You can simply say, yeah, this is my 4x, 4p over here, and this becomes my remainder. Okay, and that is what we have done over here. 204q can be written as 4p as shown. So I'm simply saying that 204q is a multiple of 4. That's all I'm saying over here. Okay, does everyone get it now? Now, I have certain questions here. Wouldn't it be faster to look at 207 and this has to be extrapolated? As I said, for this question, you can utilize whatever method you use to get to it faster. But remember what our goal is. Our goal is to be able to solve those 3 data sufficiency questions correctly. Okay. Right now, you're not working with variables in this question. So the method that you'll utilize, that you've utilized, will work. But our goal is to be able to build our skill set so that we can solve questions of higher difficulty level confidently, so that we have that method. That is what we are doing. Right now, solving this question is the means. Understanding the method to solve this question is the means to build our acumen to be able to solve those higher difficulty questions. Does this make sense? Because that is the basic fundamental thing that I'm teaching you. That is the basic thing that I want you to learn. Okay, so every time that you will be able to solve question in a faster method, that is there. I do agree with that. But what is the goal? We are utilizing the approach for this to help you solve those difficult questions correctly. Okay, what would have happened if 204 was not a multiple of 4? We'll talk about that. Okay, and that's where the increasing order of difficulty comes about in this particular question type. Okay, and this is where, let's come to question number 5 now. Okay, and here you go, you have the number similar thing, okay, let's get everyone to click on still solving, please. We are still not there at the same question wherein the number is not divisible, but here there is another complexity that we are. Okay, I had the broadcast results on. I hope that didn't influence your answers. So here, what is the only difference between the two questions, question number 4 and 5, in terms of complexity? What layer of complexity have we added in this one? Because whoever solved the question selected the correct answer. Remainder is more than 5, absolutely, yes. So there is a constraint over here. Remainder can't be more than 5, absolutely. So same thing, n is equal to 5p plus r is less than 5, and it's very important for you to note this constraint, and I'll tell you why this constraint is so very important. Something that seems so logical, so such a given thing becomes really very critical as you solve questions. Okay, all right. Now n is equal to 205q plus 6, right? Again, you're visualizing. This is a process skill of visualizing. In the warm-up questions, we did the process skill of all, considering all cases. In this case, you have two equations, 1, 2, and you're visualizing them to figure out, to get to the answer, okay? All right, so you're applying that visualization skill. You notice that, okay, n, for you to solve this question, what you need is n should be composed of two numbers, sum of two numbers, one that's multiple of 5, and two, second number that's not a multiple of 5. Okay, so that's what you're doing over here. 205q, this is absolutely a multiple of 5, which means that the remainder will be 6. Now, when you say remainder is 6, I'm glad that not many of you selected choice D as the correct answer. Essentially, remainder cannot be 6. Why? Because the divisor is 5, which means that the remainder has to be less than 5. Okay, that's the concept. Okay, so you need to apply the constraint. This is a constraint applied in the question from the concept itself, right? So that's the process skill of applying constraints. So R is equal to 1 over here. Okay, all right. So again, similar question, pretty straightforward application of the method. The only complexity that we added was that you need to consider the constraints. And I have another comment over here. Isn't your way very long? I absolutely understand that to solve these easy questions, you can simply do the calculation and you can find the answer. But again, I'm repeating myself. You're building your skill set to be able to solve those difficult questions, those daunting questions that you answered in the beginning of this session. That is what we are building towards. Okay, all right. So let's go forward. Now again, if this question appears in your exam, by all means go and solve this question using the method that you are using right now. But our goal right now is to build, when you're learning the method, when you're building your skill set to get to that higher difficulty questions correctly, you need to utilize this method. Okay, all right. So overall feedback, make sure you have 200% clarity in concepts. Now, how many of you got at least one question wrong in this warm-up exercise. At least one question wrong. Okay, so my feedback to you is that definitely build on your conceptual understanding. GMAT questions require much more advanced level of application of these concepts. Okay, so you definitely need to work on getting that 200% clarity, not just 100%, but 200% clarity, because when you get to applying concepts, you'll have to apply more than one concept in a much more complicated environment. Okay, so that's the reason why you have to make sure you have 200% clarity of concepts. Okay, now we are going to continue with the same theme. Okay, this is the very theme that we are continuing on with. Let's solve this question now. I'm going to get the poll. Go ahead, please click on still solving. All right, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. The correct answer here is choice C. Let's see how we would solve it using the method that we have been talking about. M is equal to 15P plus R, where R is less than 15. M by 30 is equal to 8.2. So what I do is I get M is equal to 30 into 8.2. Now this is a little different from the form that we've been working with in the warm-up questions. Here you have product of two numbers, one of them is a decimal. So how do I go about doing this? Ultimately, again, it's a process skill of visualization which is under play here. Okay, I write down 30. Remember what my goal is. My goal is to express, I can get to my answer if I can express M over here as sum of two numbers. One that's multiple of 15 because 15 is my divisor here. The second, that is not a multiple of 15. That is the principle that I'm going by. Okay, in terms of my approach. So what do I see here? M is equal to 30 into 8.2. So I apply my understanding of what this 8.2 is, and I apply the distributive property of addition, and what I get 30 into 8 plus 30 into 0.2. Now what does that mean? This 30 is actually a multiple of 15, right? So now I'm actually grouping things which are multiple of 15, which are multiple of 15, right? So what do I get? I get 15 into 2 into 8, right? So I'm writing 30 as 15 into 2, and I'm taking 2 inside, plus 6. 30 into 0.2 is 6, right? So what I get is I actually get 6 as the remainder. Okay, and 6 is the answer. Any doubts about this one? Okay, was this the method that you also used? I think some of you are going to say no here. Okay, what is the method that you used? How many of you did the calculation? M is equal to 246, multiply 30, okay. You can use that method, but again, I'm urging you to start using this method, because ultimately when you're dealing with variables, and again keep in mind that question number 8, when you're dealing with variables, you will not be able to do calculations. Okay, so don't be short-sighted here. Don't just focus on this question. Keep the end goal in mind. Okay, so from next question onwards, can I get your commitment to try to using this method? Is that a commitment that I can get? And again, there's no one forcing you after this session to follow this method. It's completely up to you. You can go back to using your calculations, but you've committed this time over here with me. So if you can heed to my request, I would really appreciate that. Okay, so let's go into question number 2 now and try to use the method over here. Okay, don't resort into calculations. And again, keep in mind, what if these numbers were bigger? What if these numbers were not as easy as 30, 15? Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. 82% of the class has selected the correct answer. I'm going to walk you through the method here again. Same method. Okay. M is equal to 30p plus R. R is less than 30. M is 15 into 8.2. Again, my goal is to express this in terms of two numbers. One that's a multiple of x and multiple of 30, and second that is not a multiple of 30. Not multiple of 30. Okay, that is what I have. This number will then become my remainder while applying the constraint R is less than 30. Okay, so that's what I do. I break this down. 15 into 8 plus 15 into 0.2. I'm simply breaking down 8.2. Okay, so I then figure out, okay, what is it that I need? I need a multiple of 30. Now 15 into 8 is nothing but 15 into 2 into 4, right? Plus 15 into 0.2 is 3. Okay, so what I get is 30 into 4 plus 3, which means remainder is 3. Now, how many of you use the method that you see on the screen? I hope I get more yeses this time than last time. Okay, good. Any comments about the ease of use of this method? Any comments about the ease of use of this method? Too easy, yes. Very useful, very easy. Saves time, absolutely. And again, all you have to do is be a little bit more patient. Okay, just do I have a problem with a bigger number? I don't know, but you will be able to see the application of it a whole lot more as we go into the DS questions. Okay, but again, one thing that I want you to keep in mind is, yes, you've learned this about divisibility and remainders, but similar thing is applicable for prime numbers as well, for word problems as well. When you're going through the course, you may feel that as if there is an easier way to solve that question. You may feel that, okay, the methods that you're showing, they are too long. And I want you to go past that. Okay, trust the course. The course has worked for several people. People have been able to improve their scores from anywhere from 30 to 47, 49, 50. Okay, so if it's worked for them, you have to make sure you have to trust the methods. Okay, yes, as you were saying in the session as well, why do I need to solve it with this longer method when I can simply do calculation, and I can simply take a look at the numbers and figure that out? Because the goal is keep the end goal in mind. That's the purpose. Your purpose is not to just solve this question. Your purpose is to learn from this question so that you can solve those difficult questions. And I know I'm repeating myself. I feel like a broken record here, but it's that much more important, because I know all of us over here feel as if it's the time that you are rushing against. It's not the time that you're rushing against. It's you that you are rushing against, because you need to have that application, the right process. Okay, all right. Enough of lecturing. Let's go to the next one here. Question number 3. Let's continue with the same method. Okay, go ahead, and you can click on still solving, please. All right, I apologize, I had the broadcast results on. All right, so I'm going to end the poll in another 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So yeah, choice E is the correct answer, and method, same thing, m is equal to 30p plus r. My goal is to express this, I'm going to repeat myself, as a multiple of 30 plus another number that is not a multiple of 30, okay? And this other number becomes r, okay? That's what my goal is. So m is equal to 15 into 9 plus 15 into 0.2. Now I needed a multiple of 30, right? So I say now 9, if I simply multiply 15 and 9, I'm not going to get a multiple of 30. So I need to break this 9 down into 8 plus 1. Why 8 plus 1? Into at least one even number, right? Now I get even number. What do I get from that even number? The number 2, right? Which is what gives me 30. So again, this is the manipulation that I have to do, and that's where my common number sense comes into picture over here, right? Because I'm keeping this thing in mind. What is it that I need? I need a multiple of 30. Now, how will I get multiple of 30 from 15 and 9? I have to break this 9 down into an even number, because into sum of even number and an odd number, right? So that I can extract that 30 multiple from there. And that's what I do. 15 into 8 plus 1. I carry on over there. 15 into 8 plus 15 into 1. Now 15 into 8 gives me the multiple of 30. This gives me the component of multiple of 30. These two go into component of not multiple of 30. Okay, and that's what I get. Okay, so the answer is 18. Okay, now how many of you use this method here? Any thoughts about this? Because we've come to the end of the second part over here. Any thoughts about this? Does the method work? Easier than calculations? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very conceptual. Always gives you the correct answer. Absolutely. Okay. And again, what was needed? A number of you were saying, why do I need to go through this, right? But now you do realize that this is much more simple. Okay. All you needed was a methodology. what is it that you're doing. And this is your process skill of visualization. Okay, you are seeing where is visualization coming about. And again, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but as I said, whatever I teach you here will be applicable across all of quant. And again, this is the methodology that you have to understand. Process skills across quant are the same. Visualization, applying constraints, translating the problem, understanding the, translating the problem, we're simplifying the problem, right? Those are considering all cases. These are your process skills, okay? Okay, so now let's take, so again, all you had to do was over here, figure out what it is that you need from the question statement now, and then you see what is given, and then you try to extract that. This is what you needed from the question statement in order to extract, okay? Why did we use only 8 plus 1 combination? Because that works. I could have, because again, I need just one 2 over there, right? Because I needed to make 15 as 2, 15 into 2, 30, because that's what I needed over here, right? So that's how I'm doing the manipulation. All right, so again, visualization is important. That's what we learned over here. Progressively increasing degree of application. The first one was very straightforward. The second one required some manipulation. Third one required a whole lot more manipulation. So the theme that you see over here, progressively increasing the degree of application, that is how you need to be preparing for your test. Okay, this kind of progressive increase in application happens in the degree of application happens in our application files in the course. You learn the concept. Once you learn the concept, then you go into the application file where you solve questions 1 through 5, and these are going to be in increasing order of difficulty, but taking the same concepts that you learned in the course. Okay, so that is what you get from the quant course. Okay, now let's go into our higher difficulty questions. Now, I'm going to first build upon a certain level of understanding of your concept. Now, whatever I'm going to teach next, it's not a primary concept, but it is a derived concept. What do I mean by that? You don't necessarily need to memorize what I'm going to be teaching you next. But it's important for you to keep that in mind so that you can solve questions in a much easier manner. Okay, so let's come to what is the, okay, now what's the remainder when 31 plus 43 is divided by 7? Okay, if you were to solve this question, you could utilize two methods. One is you could add the two numbers, and then you would divide the two numbers by 7, find the remainder. Second is that you could divide the two numbers by 7, individual numbers by 7, and whatever remainder you get, you could add the remainders. Okay, both of these methods are fine, and depending upon the size of the numbers, depending upon whether you like division or not, especially division by 7, it's not a very pleasant exercise, you would utilize one or the other method. Okay, but when it comes to multiplying, okay, same thing is applicable here, but sequence number 1 is going to be very laborious because you'll end up working with a very, very big number here. Okay, you multiply two numbers, then you divide the product by the divisor here, right? So in this case, the second method, that is multiplying the remainders, is a lot more efficient. Okay, so essentially what we are talking about is when that adding and multiplying remainders simplifies your calculations. Okay, so what I want you to do is, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but the concept that I'm telling you is that you can add and multiply remainders. When I share this PDF with the PDF of this presentation with you, I want you to come to this slide. I want you to work it out on your own so that you can derive this on your own so that you get that much level of confidence. Okay, so over here really, so again, I'm just walking through this. So simply, so do this on your own, please, because that's very important. Because once you do it on your own, you get that much more confidence in the application of that concept. Okay, but the key thing over here is you can add and multiply remainders. Now applying, is everyone comfortable with that concept that you can add and multiply remainders? Yes, no? Okay, good. Now let's solve this question. Let's apply, let's look at this question and solve it. Can you please click on still solving? Okay, I have a question in the Q&A board. Where is the PDF? The PDF will be shared with you at the end of the session. I have another question. Can I access the first part of the class presentation? Absolutely, yes. We'll be sharing the recording in another 6 to 8 hours after the session ends, and you'll be able to look at that part. Okay. Are these questions really 650 to 700 level? Yes, they are. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Honest reply here. How many of you applied the concept that we just read? Or how many of you did any kind of processing? Okay, so in this case, what do you see? What is the remainder when 24 cubed times 38 to the power 5 is divided by 3? What is the first thing that you would notice here? What is the first thing that you will notice here? How many of you notice that 24 is divisible by 3? Okay, all right. So the key to this question was simply observing. 24 is completely divisible by 3, so there is no processing that you have to do. The answer is 0. Okay, and you don't even have to bother about 38 to the power 5. Why? Because you have a multiplication sign. Anything that's multiplied by 0 is going to be 0. Okay, those are the only two things that you needed to worry about, nothing else. Okay, so here 24 is completely divisible by 3, therefore the expression is completely divisible by 3, therefore remainder is 0. So again, regardless of how many concepts you know, stick to the basic conceptual understanding. Okay, if you guys were tempted to figure out the remainder of 38 by 3, then you went too far. You didn't really need to go that far. You simply needed to understand that this is already a multiple of 3, this product is already a multiple of 3, so I don't need to worry about any other terms. Okay, all right, let's look at question number 5 now. Now let's solve this one. Now this is where we changed things a little bit. All right, I'm going to end the poll. So about 60% of the class got the question correct here. Again, same thing. We apply our multiplying remainders rule here. 25 remainder 3 is 1. 38 remainder 3 is 2. So 1 times 2 raised to the power 3. What I get is 2 cube. What I get is 8. But the correct answer is 2 over here. Why? Because 8 is more than the divisor 3. Okay, so the correct answer is 2. Okay, so most of you got the question correct. There's some of you who didn't, so I hope that you're able to figure out where you faltered. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to our next section. Okay. So essentially, the whole thing about this section was that calculations can be simplified extensively. Okay, and in this case, we saw the example of multiplying and adding remainders. Now we're going to carry forward with that same theme, and we're going to talk about negative remainders. Now, in the context of GMAT, remainders are always positive. Okay, but at times, in order to make our calculations easy, we can utilize negative remainders, especially -1 as a remainder. And I'm going to give you an example here. Okay, let's say um, you have 5 remainder 2. That's 1 here, right? So how do you get 1? Use 2. 5 is equal to 2 times 2 plus 1. Okay, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1. Likewise, 8 remainder 3 is 2. Okay. Now, how about instead of writing 5 as 2 times 2 plus 1, you wrote 5 as 2 times 3 minus 1. Okay. That also is equal to 5, right? Likewise, in terms of 8 remainder 3, instead of writing 3 into 2 plus 2, what if you wrote it as 3 into 3, which is 9, minus 1? Okay, this is the concept of negative remainders. Okay, and as I give you a question, you will be able to see the application of it. Okay, all right. And again, the whole point is we are making our calculations easy, and using negative remainders when you can get a -1 as a negative remainder is going to make your calculations very easy. Okay. Now, but these are negative remainders. But remember, in the context of the GMAT, remainder is always greater than or equal to 0. So I want you to apply this constraint, and I want you to basically keep this in mind, that to get the final answer, you always need to convert your negative remainder back to positive remainder. And I know right now all of this may seem like alien to you. Why are you talking about first getting a negative remainder and then converting it back to a positive remainder? But just bear with me, and you're going to see the application of it shortly. Okay, I want you to spend some time on the slide as well after the session is over, so that you can do this working out on your own. But right now, I'm just going to tell you what it is that you have to do in order to convert your negative remainder into your positive remainder. Simply add the divisor back to your negative remainder, and that's how you're going to get your positive remainder. Okay, so keep these two things in mind and try solving this question. You will be able to see why this concept is important. Okay. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. How many of you were able to appreciate negative remainders? Okay, not that many of you. Okay, that's a little surprising. All right, let's go through this. So essentially, this is what is given to us. We need to find out the remainder when this big term is divided by 3. It's a pretty huge term. Now, this term you already know is going to yield a remainder of 0, right? Because there is 24 over 24 in that, right? So essentially, what you have to figure out is what is the remainder contributed by this term here, which is 17 remainder 3 raised to the power 7. Okay, that's what you need to find out. Now 17, if you were to write it in your regular terms, how would you write it? 3 times 5 plus 2, right? That's what you would do, and your remainder is going to be 2 there. Okay, and then you'll have to raise 2 to the power 7 and then divide that number again by 3. How many of you did that? How many of you simply followed this one over here? 2 and then 2 raised to the power 7 and then divide that by 3 in order to get to the answer. Half of the class did that. You didn't need to do any of that. Okay, why? Because if you simply utilized, you have to recognize 17 remainder 3. Is there any way that 17 would give a remainder minus 1 when divided by 3? In this case, definitely yes. 18 minus 1 is 17. Now, when you do processing with negative 1, you get minus 1 as the remainder. Minus 1 raised to the power 7 is nothing but minus 1. So you already have, there is no further division to be done by 3 in order to get to the answer, right? And all you have to do now is add back the divisor, which is 3. So your answer is 2. That's your answer. Do you see the ease of use of this method here? Yes or no? Okay, now in this case, granted, we had the other option was, or the positive remainder option was 2 here, and 2 is not that bad a number to do your calculations with. Plus, you simply had to divide the 2 to the power 7 by 3, so it wasn't that bad, right? So in this case, let's now now we're going to do our next problem on this, and here you have to divide by 6. Okay, so let's solve this one. I'm going to reopen this. Let's click on still solving, please, and then solve the question as well. And then we're going to go back to our three questions that we took up in the beginning. This. All right, so I see that everyone is converged to choice E as the correct answer, and that is definitely the correct answer. How many of you now appreciate the concept of negative remainders? Good, that's more like it. Okay, now again, straightforward. The first component over here gives remainder of 0, 17 remainder 6. Now if you were to utilize your regular positive remainder, you get 5 and 5 raised to the power 7, divide that by 6. That would have been really too cumbersome to calculate, but we have our negative remainder to rescue, and what you get is minus 1 raised to the power 7. Minus 1 is the negative remainder that you get. Add back 6 and you get 5 as the answer. Straightforward. Now, one thing that I want all of you to appreciate here is GMAT is not about cumbersome calculations. That's something that all of you should really acknowledge. Okay, GMAT is all about finding the most optimum and logical way to solve a question. Okay, so now yes, you can say that okay, your numbers over here are such that this negative remainder makes sense. And that is the whole point. What now you may question, okay, what if the number was even more difficult? What if instead of negative 1, it was negative 3? And the other option was positive 5. What would you do? Again, that is, in that case also, you would then work with negative 3 because 3 is a much smaller number. The whole point is, given the two options, which is the more logical, which is a more, which option leads to a more straightforward application, straightforward path to the solution. That is what you need to figure out. And if you think about it in terms of our in terms of the decisions that a manager has to make, this kind of decision making is what is important, right? That's so essentially here you're making decisions on a question level, on an approach level. Okay, in real life scenarios, you're taking decisions based on the problem that you have, right? Based on the data that you have to work with, right? Now, in this case, you have negative remainders to your rescue, and the test maker is not going to give you plus 5 as a remainder and expect you to do 5 to the power 7 divided by 13 divided by 6. No, those things are not going to be tested. You're not going to be tested on that because calculators are there to do that, right? So again, if you are getting caught in those complicated calculations, then realize that there is a much straightforward way, much more logical way to approach that question. Okay, does that make sense? Yes, no? Okay. All right. So we are now at the end of this part as well. Again, sometimes we are talking about simplifying calculations, right? And we introduce the concept of negative remainders. Again, simplification is the key here. Okay. Now we are going to go back to our 3 questions that we gave you in the beginning. Now, how many of you want, let's say, 5-minute break before we go into this section? Okay, you don't want a break, that's fine. We'll continue on over here. That's okay. All right, so let's go forward. I'm going to give you another chance to solve those questions. I know there were some of you who joined in late, so you will get a chance to solve these questions again. For those of you who have already gone through this session, you will be able to, I want you to see how you can apply the learnings that you've had in this session. Okay, and again, you may not get the correct answer this time as well, but there should have been some improvement in your approach to this question. Okay, so let's go ahead and all right, I'm going to end the poll now. Last 10 seconds. All right, here are the results now. 40% of the class has selected choice A versus 25% last time around when you answered. Then choice C had 52% of votes last time around. This time around it's 43%. So there are some people, quite a few people who were selecting choice C who have now selected choice A. Now for those of you who've changed their votes from C to A, do you feel more confident about your answer right now? Yes. Okay. All right. So let me go through this. I'll tell you what the correct answer is. What do I have to find out? I have to find out what is the remainder when positive integer p is divided by a positive integer m, where m is greater than 1. So it's important to note that m is greater than 1. Okay. So I have to find p remainder m. Now, ideally, you would think that, okay, if you have value of p and value of m, you can find out the remainder, right? Now, let's see what does statement 1 give us. Statement 1 tells me p is equal to m plus 1 raised to the power 8. Okay, and I have to find p remainder m. Now, if you were to solve this question, you would look at this and you would say, okay, I need P and M both. And right now I simply have an equation that relates P with M, but I don't know what the values of P or M are. So I wouldn't be able to solve this question. You solve the answer the question based on the information, but you have to go a little bit deeper. Think about what the statement is asking you. The statement is asking you what is P remainder M, and then you write this down, process it further. M plus 1 raised to the power 8 remainder M. Okay, apply your understanding of remainders here, which means that m plus 1 divided remainder m whole to the power 8, right? I always can multiply remainders, right? And what is the remainder when m plus 1 is divided by m? It's always 1. Okay, that's your conceptual understanding of what consecutive numbers are, right? M plus 1 remainder m is always 1. Okay, so 1 raised to the power 8 is 1. So the remainder is 1, which means that even if I don't know the value of P or M given this relationship, I can find out what the remainder in this case is. Okay, so statement 1 is sufficient. So now tell me, for those of you who selected choice A, was that your reasoning? And again, choice 2 is definitely not sufficient. Statement 2 is definitely not sufficient because all you have is m is equal to 8. You have no information about p. So technically all you know is the divisor 8. You don't know what the number you have to divide, what the dividend is. Okay, so choice A is the correct answer. Now for those of you who selected choice C, tell me, what step did you not do? I know the reason why you selected choice C, and that was the reason applicable with a number of you when you solved earlier in this session. But right now, and that reason simply is this equation relates P and M. This gives you the value of 8. You can together, these two will basically give you the remainder because you'll be able to find the value of P, you will be able to find the value of M. Okay. Now, the reason why you still selected choice C was because you're not comfortable working with variables here. M plus 1 is divisible by 8. You weren't able to contextualize this. Okay, that's another thing. Okay, how have you taken m to the power 8 in the denominator? Again, I'm simply applying my the concept of multiplying and adding remainders. In this case, essentially what I have to find out is what is the remainder when m plus 1 to the power 8 is divided by m. Okay, which means that essentially what I have to find out is I can do remainder m multiplied by m plus 1 remainder m all the way to 8. That's what I have to do, all the way times 8. Right? So again, if you have confusions about that, definitely go back to the slide. Remember, I had asked you to go through that in a step-by-step manner. So you still need to completely cement that concept in your mind. Okay, so do that. Knowing that the remainder is 1 intuitively. And again, that's where observe m plus 1 remainder m. In this case, when you come here, essentially there's m in the quotient, there's m in the denominator. Okay, so in the numerator and then m in the denominator. Just try to take up, okay, 4 divided by 3, remainder is always 1, right? Why? Because these are consecutive numbers, right? And that's why you have to be at ease when you're solving quant questions. And just that confidence that you have everything that you need to solve questions is very important. Another confidence that's required is that GMAT is not going to throw anything at you that you can't solve. Okay, so definitely it's very important to be at ease when you're solving questions, because if you're tensed up, you will not be able to make observations which are as simple as m plus 1 remainder m is 1. Okay. All right, now I have a question in the Q&A pod. Why did I put m in the denominator? Because that's what my divisor is. I have to find out p remainder m. Okay, that's what it is. And again, I'm not dividing m plus 1 by m to find. When you simply write down m plus 1 divided by m, you get two things, right? You get the quotient and you get the remainder. Now, when I write down this thing by an R, which means that I'm talking about the remainder. When I don't write R, then I'm talking about the quotient. Okay. All right. So again, the very fact you're asking that question, there is something you still don't have that 100%, that 200% clarity in concept. So what I would say is go through the PDF, go through this recording once again. Okay. It can be visualized using binomial expansion expression as well. It definitely can be. But in my opinion, that's a little bit more complicated. I find it much easier to process it in this manner, in the manner shown. Okay, but yeah, definitely you can utilize binomial as well. Okay, so how many of you appreciate the build-up of the concept, the progressively increasing concepts that we build up to be able to answer difficult questions such as these? Good, I'm glad. Okay, and again, you need to be patient through the process. Okay, all right, let's look at this question, question number 9. And do you want to solve this question on your own once again, or should we simply go into the solution? Whatever you guys want. Solve this question. Okay. Okay, let me ask the question again because I gave you both the options, so I'm not sure what you're saying yes to. Do you want to solve the question? Yes, no? Okay, majority is saying yes, so let's go ahead and solve this question. All right, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so here were your results. The one that you see on the left hand side is question 9 that you answered earlier. And you can see the correct answer here is choice A, and we'll go through the solution. But you can see that quite a few of you had selected choice C earlier, and you no longer, many of you have changed their votes to either choice A or choice D. Choice D has suddenly become more popular, which means that you are essentially, you know that number of you have now realized that the statement 1 is sufficient. Some of you have now started to realize that statement 2 is also sufficient. So, but statement 2 is not sufficient. Okay, so let's go through this. But definitely the stuff that we've been talking about really applies to statement number 1. So the very fact that you now think that statement number 1, you agree that statement number 1 is sufficient, means that whatever we have built up on in this session is working for you. Okay, would you agree to that? And again, that confidence when you're applying, when you're solving questions, that is also another testament of whether the way you are learning is that helping or not. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this one here. Okay. Now, in this question, the most important step is to analyze the question statement. Okay, you have to extract as much as you can from the question statement. That's very, very important. So let's look at that. So question statement analysis. What is the remainder when 38 n raised to the power n square is divided by 13? So that's a pretty complicated expression to begin with, right? But what we do know is that we can multiply remainders, right? So what we can do is 38 remainder 13 and raise that to the power n square, okay? Now this is where it's important to get that particular tool from your arsenal, that 38 remainder 13. If somehow, and you have to raise that to the power n square, right? So is it possible to have a smaller number here, and more specifically -1? Okay, why? Because then that's going to ease your calculations. Okay, so that's what you extract, and what you get is absolutely 38 is equal to 13 times 3 minus 1. Versus if you were to use your regular remainder method, then 12, and there's no way that you would have been able, I mean, there's no way that I can solve that right now. Okay, so I utilize -1 as the remainder here. -1 raised to the power n square. Now the beauty of -1 is it's either 1, when you raise it to the power, it's either 1 or -1, and that's how you're going to work this out, that okay, if n is odd, which means n square is odd, in that case -1 raised to the power odd number is going to be -1, or if n is even, then -1 raised to the power even number is going to be 1. So the remainder in two cases is going to be different, which means that what you really need to find out in order to answer this question is that what is the even odd nature of n? Can you confidently say that n is even, or can you confidently say that n is odd? That is what you need to figure out from the individual statements. How many of you got to that derivation of the question statement? Because that is the key here. The question statement analysis is the key here in order to solve this question correctly. Okay, good. For those of you who were not able to get to this level, either you are still a little rusty about the concepts that we have covered here, or you are not in the habit of doing this level of analysis for question statement when it comes to data sufficiency questions. So both of those are your feedback points. Figure out which one is applicable for you and fix that. Okay. All right. So now statement 1 analysis. N leaves no remainder when divided by 4. That simply tells us that n is an even number, which means that statement 1 is sufficient. Now let's take a look at, so the potential answer choices are A and D, right? Now the next one is square root of n is only divisible by 1 and itself. Now when you say is only divisible by 1 and itself, it means that it's a prime. Square root of n is only divisible by a prime number, right? Which means square root of n is only divisible by 1 and itself means that square root of n is a prime number, which means that n is a square of prime number. Now this is where you bring up your understanding of prime numbers, and knowing that 2 is the only even prime number means that is the key over here, okay, which means that your n can be even or odd, which means that statement 2 is not sufficient. So for those of you who selected choice D, missed out on this part over here, that 2 is the only even prime number. Okay, so that's a conceptual application that you couldn't do. Not that you don't know what square root is, what prime numbers are, but you weren't able to recall that concept and apply it over here. What does itself mean? Itself means that square root of n. Okay, itself means the square root of n. Okay, so a number that's divisible by 1 and itself is a prime number. So that's a definition of a prime number. Okay. All right, so the correct answer here is choice A. But again, as we said, this was what we were building towards. So if you were able to do this analysis, that means good. The session has worked for you. If you missed out on this part over here, 2 square, that's just something that you have to be very cautious about, that it's really recalling the right concepts at the right time. Okay. All right, now question number 10, we can go through this. Okay, let's go through this one as well. I'm not going to give you another chance to solve this one. Let's go through the solution together. Okay, We are running a little bit behind here, so let's go through this one. So essentially what we have over here is, what is the remainder when 4m is divided by 16, where m is a positive integer, right? So we simply have to find out what is the remainder when this 4m is divided by 16. We have to find out the remainder. There isn't much. All we do is we write down our constraints here. Now, m leaves a remainder 4 when divided by 32 raised to the power 32, and these numbers do seem a little bit scary, right? So, but again, every time we see something scary, that's okay. Just have that confidence again that GMAT is not going to throw anything at you that you can't handle. That's one thing. Those are the two pieces of confidence that I want you all to have all the time. Okay, you know stuff. If you have learned the concepts, if you've learned the application, then you know stuff. Second, it's not going to throw anything at you that you can't handle. So take a deep breath and just go forward with it. Be comfortable with it. So essentially m leaves a remainder of 4 when divided by 32 raised to the power 32. Write that down. We are very used to writing down divisibility equations. M is equal to 32 raised to the power 32k. That's your divisor. It's a very weird looking divisor. That's okay. Okay, plus 4. That's a remainder. Okay. Now, remember, what is it that you had to find out? You had to find out 4m, right? So remember, now go back to how we were solving those easy questions. What was the principle? That in order to find out this remainder, I need these two to be same, right? So if I simply multiply both sides by 4 over here, I will get 4m on my left hand side. Okay, now I need to express this in terms of two numbers. One, that's a multiple of 16. Okay, and second, that's not a multiple of 16, not a multiple of 16. Okay, those are the two numbers that I need to express this as. Okay, so I get started with that. Okay, and let me get rid of these annotations here. Okay, now let's go through this. Now when I multiply both sides by 4, what I get is 4m here, okay, and 4 here. Now just with a quick, even if you don't do any of the processing that I've shown over here, just observe here. 4 into 4, okay, 4 into 4 is 16, okay, which means that component is going to go into my 16, multiple of 16 part. 4 into 32 raised to the power 32. 32 is 16 times 2, right? Which means you are going to get 16 over here as well, in this term as well, right? Which means all of the terms contributed by this will go into multiple of 16, which means that the remainder is 0. Right? All of this calculation, the manipulation that I'm doing here, that's all it comes to, that the remainder is 0. Okay. How many of you were able to get to this point? How many of you understand this? I know I didn't give you a chance to solve this question again, but how many of you understand this processing? Good. Now do you appreciate how building up, if you hadn't done this level of analysis with actual numbers when you were practicing easier questions, there would have been no way for you to, or it would have been really hard for you to apply those techniques on variables. Okay, that's why you apply those methods on numbers so that you can confidently apply those methods on variables or on more difficult questions. That is why you need to go through that step-by-step method. Does that make sense? Do you appreciate that now? Good. Any thoughts on that? I want you to, because this is the basic thing that I want. This was the most important thing that I wanted you to get from this session. Again, don't go for just solving the question that is given to you. Build up your understanding to be able to solve those difficult questions. Couldn't imagine this question would have such simple and nice application. Absolutely. And that's the case with everything, not just with divisibility and remainders. That's the beauty of quant. That's the beauty of, again, working with a step-by-step method. And that's why you have to keep reminding yourself, no, I don't want to do any shortcuts. I want to learn that. Our course doesn't teach shortcuts because of this simple reason. that shortcuts are something that you should be able to come up with on your own. Nobody should have to teach you shortcuts. You should learn the application of the methods in a manner such that you become that comfortable that you can come up with your own shortcuts. Okay? Because if we only teach you shortcuts, then you're going to be dependent on those techniques. You're going to be dependent on memorizing those things, or you'll have to solve hundreds of questions to master those shortcuts. That's not the way to learn. The way to learn logically is to learn the concepts and the application. Okay, that's the logical way of learning. Okay, all right. So now let's go to statement 2. M cube is divisible by 16. Now this is a little bit more involved, okay, and this has got a little bit less to do, actually very much less to do with what the concepts that we've been building up, and more to do with just your manipulation with prime numbers. Okay, so I will show it to you, but some of you may not be able to get it right off the bat. Okay, so again, you have to basically go through the primes concepts so that you can get to this level to do such analysis. Okay, but again, it's primarily visualization. That is the core skill over here as well. Okay, so just bear with me, follow through this. Okay, what we have is M is, what we've been given is M cube is divisible by 16. Now, if M cube is divisible by 16, then M is an even number. Does everyone understand that? Then M is an even number? Yes? Okay, so I'm drawing that inference here, right? And why do I need to draw that inference? Again, in this case, M cube is divisible by 16. I'm utilizing prime factorization method here, okay? And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Why? Because ultimately what I need is, I need the remainder R, right? So that's what I need. So I'm trying to work with whatever I have. Okay, there's no remainder given to me over here. What's given to me is M cube is divisible by 16. So I'm utilizing M is equal to 2 to the power A into P1 into other prime factors raised to their individual powers. But I know for sure that 2 is a prime factor here. Okay, now I cube both sides. Why do I cube both sides? Because I need M cube here, right? So I need M cube. And again, another thing to think about is, ultimately, I need to know what is the remainder when 4m is divided by 16, right? So if I can figure out what if when 4m is divided by 16, I somehow get a remainder 0, what if 4m is completely divided by 16? So I just go with that thought process and I start to process the information that's given to me. Okay, so cubing both sides, what I get is M cube is equal to 2 to the power 3a times all these prime factors. Okay, now I know that M cube is divisible by 16. What is 16? 16 is nothing but 2 to the power 4. Okay, so if M cube is divisible by 16, that means 2 to the power 4 is a factor of M cube, which means that 3a is at least 4. Okay, 3a is the power of 2. I know that in M cube. And I know that it's divisible by, M cube is divisible by 2 to the power 4, which means that 3a is at least 4. Okay, this is an inference that I'm drawing here. Okay, which means that a is greater than or equal to 4 by 3, which means that because a is an integer, minimum value of a is 2. Okay, which means that m is equal to 2 square something something. This something something is basically these prime factors here. Okay, I don't care about that. All I care about is 16. Okay, now m is equal to 2 square and I'm concerned about 4m, right? So if I do 4m, what will I get? 4 into 2 square, something something over here, so some prime factors, right? So which means that 4m is nothing but is a multiple of 16, which means 4m is completely divisible by 16. Okay, so the answer is 0 here. Okay, now another thing that's important is that essentially again over here you have to come up with the approach based on what is the end game that you're looking at, what is the information that's given to you, and your conceptual understanding. Okay, and again, as I said, this processing has got very little to do with the concepts that we've been building up till this point in this session, but the processing over here has a lot to do with Similar thing, if we had a session similar session for prime numbers, this would have been a natural consequence of how we would have built up those concepts. Okay, I understand this is confusing for you because again you don't have the right background, but if you simply follow along this thing in the primes module, you will be able to get this. You'll be able to build your skill set. Okay. All right. So with this, again, let's go back to our basic thing over here. GMAT quant can be mastered very easily. You can go from a low quant score if you focus on learning the right things. Okay. And again, I want to share some stories with you of people who started off with different levels and who ended up with the score that they were targeting. Krish, he had been a very good quant student all along. Okay. And it was really very hard for him to accept that he wasn't able to crack GMAT quant. Okay. And that's when he realized that, okay, he had to use a technique that works for him. And that's what he appreciated about the e-GMAT course, because he was able to, because again, as I said, we don't teach any shortcuts, we don't teach any tricks. What we teach you is the basic way to handle quant questions, teaching you the concepts the right way, teaching you the application in a progressively increasing difficulty. Okay, and that's what, as he made changes to his approach to solving data sufficiency questions as well, what he noticed was that he was able to consistently get to that Q51 score. Okay, so again, focus on solving questions the right way. Don't go for quick solutions. You can get to quick solutions when you get in the test readiness mode. And remember, there are these three phases of learning, and I want you to understand that. First is when you learn the concepts, okay? Then when you cement the concepts, okay? And then you do your test readiness. What I tell my students is, when you're doing learning, don't go for time, don't go for efficiency at all. Focus on learning the right method. Okay, had we gone with efficiency while in the learning phase in the first part of the session, we wouldn't have been able to solve questions 9 and 10 effectively, 8, 9, and 10 effectively. That's the beauty of doing the learning the right way. Okay, when you get to cementing, that's also when at that stage also, I don't want you to be using shortcuts. But when you get to test readiness phase, you will have developed your skill set to the level that you will be able to come up with short methods, quick methods to solve questions. You will arrive at those naturally. The way timing is a consequence of your skill set, the same way utilizing shortcuts, utilizing shortcuts on your own is a consequence of your skill set. Okay, does this make sense? Because I know if you chase after the wrong things at the earlier level, you will not be, your journey to your target score will become very arduous. Okay, and that's why it's so important to understand that upfront. Okay, now this next story is about Leonardo, South American. He was someone who had not been excellent with GMAT quant. Okay, and he was stuck at Q45 despite trying really hard. Okay. What he actually needed a very high quant score because he was aiming for finance focused schools. Okay, and what helped him get to that Q49 was the e-GMAT course. And what in the e-GMAT course? The methodical approach. Okay, he used the analytics. He used the Quant Scholarinium platform to isolate his weakness and to work on those weaknesses through the course. Okay, so he did a lot of selective practice using Quant Scholarinium, and ultimately he got Q49, and that helped him get into Stern, Tepper, and Wharton. Okay, so again, just if you keep that in mind, that if you know how to prepare well, your journey to your MBA targets, your target MBA school becomes so much more enjoyable. Those target schools become well within your range. Okay, so again, don't take any shortcuts in the learning phase and in the cementing phase. Okay, Mazibar, another very interesting case. It's of an individual who was extremely weak in quant. Okay, his starting score was Q30, and which is a 20 percentile, so a very low starting score. And he spent a lot of time reading quant books, okay, and he wasn't able to improve. Again, books only give you concepts, right? They don't teach you application, and that's the thing which is missing from a number of prep courses that are out there. They teach you the concepts, but for application, for mastery of those concepts, you have to solve thousands and thousands of questions, and that's not the right way to improve. That's not the efficient way to improve, okay? Now, Mazibar benefited tremendously from the progressive learning architecture at e-GMAT, in which he was able to cement his basics before taking on difficult questions. And that's the beauty of it. You need to, instead of being bombarded with all the concepts in one go, you need to be able to build those concepts, master those concepts, learn the application of those concepts, then move to the next higher level of the concepts. Okay. And again, in the case of Mazibar, because his concepts were not strong to begin with, he was given the right kind of feedback and he incorporated that feedback. Okay. Now, because of the quizzes that are there in each of our concept files, he was able to build upon his conceptual understanding. He was able to get that feedback and he then built upon his conceptual understanding. Ultimately, he was able to score a Q45. Okay. Now, the last story here, Guillermo, that's also, again, these are all stories very close to my heart. Again, it's in, this guy had a very strong determination to improve, to actually study in top B schools. And he started at a Q38, which is 38 percentile as well. And he realized that he needed a stellar quant course to get an admit from Wharton and GSB Chicago. And again, keeping your goal in mind, your end goal in mind is always so important. Okay. And the only way to improve from such a low score was to truly focus on learning, which is what he did using the video lessons. And he also, he was short on time. So he utilized quant analytics, Scholarium analytics, and he basically made sure that he is working on his weak areas. And ultimately, he was able to get to a Q50. And that's a very, very stark improvement. Okay. And he got interview invite from Wharton. And yeah. Okay. So again, when the course helps distant dreams come true, it really gives us that level of satisfaction. But again, the key to using the course to excelling with the course is using the course in the right manner. Okay. So again, focus on learning and adopting good habits. Don't do shortcuts. Don't think. Don't second guess. Don't doubt the material that is being presented to you. Okay. Again, keep in mind what it is that you are aiming towards. And for that, you need to get that 200% clarity in concepts. You need to solve questions in a step-by-step manner. Don't look for quick solutions, because those quick solutions, if you're in the learning phase, if you're going for quick solutions, then you will end up not being that comfortable with solving difficult questions. But contrast that with what we did in this session. If in the learning phase you go through a step-by-step solution, you will be equipped to solve those difficult questions in the right manner. Okay. Become an active reader of question statement. Don't skip out on any information. Don't be in a hurry. And as I said, time and again in this session, trust the test maker. He's not going to throw anything at you that you cannot solve. If a question is, if the point behind the question is to see whether you'll utilize a more appropriate method to solve that question, let's say with the negative remainders, then he will make sure that you can utilize -1 as the remainder. Okay, he's not going to throw -3 as a remainder at you. Okay, so again, the syllabus is very much limited, right? So you have to work within the confines of the syllabus. And again, the whole point of the GMAT quant portion of the test is not to see whether you're mathematicians or whether you can do calculation at a lightning speed. No, it is whether you can follow that structured logical approach to solve questions. Okay. Again, believe in your skills. That is the most important thing. Okay. And with that, I'm going to end this session here. As next steps, look at all the concepts that are available to you in your free trial if you are not as yet e-GMAT students. I'll share the PDF with you as well. And there are lots of questions available, 59 in number properties in Scholarium if you're not e-GMAT students. So definitely utilize the free content that you can get. But I would say definitely look into the e-GMAT quant course and see how that can help you get to your target GMAT score. Okay. So with this, I'm going to ask you to put in your comments here, and any other questions that you may have, please put those questions in the Q&A pod so that I can answer those questions. And yeah, definitely give me your feedback. What did you learn? What did you like in the session? And because again, as I said, we conduct these sessions every weekend and we take your feedback very seriously. And if you want, um, if you're not as yet an e-GMAT student, and if you are trying to figure out how is it that you should be planning your GMAT prep, we have this excellent tool that's called Personalized Study Planner. All our students have access to that. They can create their personalized study plan in fewer than seven minutes. So, but if you're not as yet an e-GMAT student, you can definitely schedule a consultation call with us. Simply enter your email address, your current score, your target score, and some problem areas for you, and we'll help you with that. And I'm not going to broadcast those results here because that's going to have your email addresses. Okay. So where do you get your starting score from? From Sigma X mock test. Everybody gets one Sigma X mock test free of charge. So definitely take advantage of that. And yes, you're looking for the recording for yesterday's session. And let me see. Let me try to get that for you. Okay, if I'm not able to get the recording link right now, I would, okay, let me see. When do you recommend us to take the first test, after we have learned the concepts or before that? Again, depends. If you are a first-time test taker, and you want to know where you're at, then definitely take the diagnostic test before you begin your preparation. Okay, so but if you have already taken the test, I would say order your ESR so that you can save that mock test for later. And your ESR gives you your starting percentiles. Okay, but you definitely need your starting percentiles. Now, if you know that, okay, you are, if you know that you are anyways, you need to start afresh in all the sections, then you don't need to take the mock test to begin. Okay, you should take a mock test only if you feel that, okay, you're stronger in certain sections, so you can, prioritize your preparation accordingly. Okay. All right, so let me, in the meanwhile, where can I get the PDF of this and the, oh, I didn't share the PDF with you. Sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. Where is the PDF? Here it is. Thank you. I apologize for that. And one of you who's put in, make sure when you put in your answers in the email address, current score poll, you also, when you overwrite your previous, when you write again, your previous response gets overwritten. So please append to your response. So I see aiming to give GMAT in 2 months, need a study plan. Can you please put in your email address as well? Okay, and I'm going to go get the recording link. Just give me 1 second here. You can actually see recording of our sessions in our YouTube page. It's strange. Why can't I find it here? Okay, let me go another way. Okay, here it goes. Got it. Okay, I think you should have received it now. Everyone should have received it. Okay, I may not have sent it to everyone. Now everyone should have received it. All right. I think that's about it. Where can you get the PDF of this one? PDF of this one is there. PDF of earlier sessions. We don't have a common place where we put the PDF of the earlier sessions. But yeah, when we share the recording link with you, you do get that PDF with the recording link email. Okay, so you will get, yeah. All right. So with that, we've come to the end of the session, and good luck to all of you. I hope that you get to your target GMAT score, and do let us know wherever you need help. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. And if you have any questions, please write to me at payal@e-gmat.com.